Good afternoon, everyone. May I ask you to take your seats, please? Thank you so much. We're going to get started now. Get a last photo in before we all sit down. Good morning, everyone. Honored guests, distinguished speakers, friends of JAST, and our special sponsors and members. I'm Lee Weiland. Many of you already know that. But on behalf of the members of the Board of Directors and the staff of the Japan-America Society of Tennessee, I have the pleasure of welcoming you to the 7th Annual Women's Leadership Forum and Networking Luncheon. After a long period apart, it feels strange to be back together again, but what a wonderful reunion. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. It means so much to us. And we're excited to be here at another beautiful venue to learn and be inspired, to expand our respective networks while celebrating women leaders and their far-reaching contributions to local and global communities, with Japan-Tennessee connections at the very center. We're most grateful to the continued partnership of the Tennessee State Museum, led by Executive Director Ashley Howell. Ashley had intended to be with us today, but was called away for family matters just last night. Her own impressive journey is inspiring as a native Tennessean, and standing in for her today is Lee Curtis, who has her own incredible story in her leadership career. So I've known Lee for many decades. We were just in our youth together in Tennessee state government. But Lee grew up in Sumner County, Hendersonville to be precise. She grew up at the historic Mont Haven, which is home to the Hendersonville Cultural and Arts Center. But she lives in Nashville now and serves as communications and legislative liaison for the Tennessee State Museum for the past 4 years. Her long career in state government, she even said 43 years, she's very bold. She was, prior to the Tennessee State Museum, she was legislative liaison and director of program development for the Tennessee Department of Tourism. Her state government career started in the office of the governor, where she worked directly for Governors Ned McWhirter, who was a Democrat, and Lamar Alexander, who was a Republican, for 12 consecutive years. Following the governor's office, she worked in various positions in the Tennessee Department of Tourism, including Director of Sales, where she headed up the international sales efforts, as well as the domestic sales, to the group tour market, and headed up the first ever State Cultural and Heritage Division for the department. Also, as Director of Program Development, Lee headed up the Tennessee Civil War Trails Program, where over 450 markers have been installed statewide to promote the lesser-known but impactful sites in our state during the Civil War, to help interpret and preserve these important stories that shaped our nation 150 years ago. These markers are at Civil War sites in all 95 counties, including her own home place, Mont Haven, I should say, that served as field hospital during the Civil War. She continues to serve on several boards related to Tennessee's Civil War history and works closely with our state historian as she continues her career at the Tennessee State Museum. Please welcome Lee Curtis to welcome you in her own words.
Well, good morning. It's still before noon, and yes, I feel like I do belong at the museum because a long career in state government, 43 years, I am a fossil, and fossils go to the state museum, right? But I just want to welcome you here, and I wanted to just kind of quickly open with a statement that always resonates with me. A people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. So our state museum provides those roots. for all of us to understand what our culture, what our history, and what our heritage is. And again, I am so deeply sorry that Ashley Howell, our director, could not be with you today. She was looking so forward, Consul General, to seeing you and meeting so many other new friends, and she could not be here. So I am honored to be able to be here and welcome you on her behalf. But since she couldn't be here, I just wanted to give you a vision of a quote that she had said when the museum first opened, to give you a little bit about what she was telling the public of what we want our museum to do. So I'm going to take you back a few years to October the 4th, 2018, when the museum opened its doors to visitors and to Tennesseans and to America. And here is what she said. Today, we open our doors and we open our minds. We open our minds to learn more about those who lived and served and died, to learn more about creativity, ingenuity, and perseverance that shapes our history, art, and culture. To the people of Tennessee, this is your museum, and these are your stories. And we can't wait to welcome you all today and for the many years to come. So I wanted to share with you her quote so you could know her vision and the vision of all of us here at the Tennessee State Museum as well. It was opened, for those of you that don't know, in 1937 in the War Memorial Building, here just right across the street, right across the way. And then it moved to the James K. Polk Building in 1981. And then, of course, in October of 18, we moved here. And it has been wonderful. When I was in the tourism office, we worked very closely with the museum under the James K. Polk Building. But as most of you here from Nashville know, it was on the lower level. It was hard to get to. Jennifer remembers. And yes, I've known this one a long time, too. She's going to be amazing to hear from. And it was hard to get to. We, entertained a lot of school groups, but at the same time, we weren't really, really opening up to a lot of visitors that could make their way here. So being here on the grounds of what we call the campus of the Farmers Market, which I hope some of you all will get to enjoy later on. You've got the Tennessee State Museum. We've got the brand new Library and Archives building right across the way. We have Tennessee's only urban state park located at our front and side door, the Bicentennial Mall State Park. Out of all of the state parks in Tennessee, it's the only urban state park. And of course, the Nashville Sound Stadium, and a historic Jefferson Street, right behind us. So we are in the heart of a lot of history here, and we have a lot of vision, for visitors. Today, we are examining this history, art, and culture that does chronicle the state's history, as you'll see, from the first peoples to present day. And when we were able to move to this museum, we were able to extend from the last timeline over at the Polk Building to extending that timeline all the way up to adding sports, arts, culture. You'll see so much more. We have many visitors that come and they pace themselves, and they'll come for 2 hours every Saturday until they, get at least each section done. We go from natural history, from the origins of Tennessee's landscape to the first peoples, to forging a nation, Civil War and Reconstruction, change and challenge, and then Tennessee transforms. So there are several new areas that if some of you did come to the museum before, you're going to see a whole lot more. We also have a temporary gallery, which right now is Tennessee Craft, and that rotates so that we can actually bring you, more ideas. So even though the permanent galleries are there, we're going to be able to rotate. And that's going to be a wonderful thing. We also have the Tennessee State Capitol, that we have guides up there. That is the second oldest working capitol in the states today. The first is in Annapolis. And then we have, of course, the museum, and then we have a military branch of the Tennessee State Museum, which is also located on the War Memorial Plaza. So those three entities, make up here what we run here at the Tennessee State Museum. But I also just wanted to take a moment to talk to you about your role in leadership and Tennessee Women in Leadership, and how, this just didn't happen in the last 2 decades. From the Civil War, that's when women, from even before, started coming up, stepping up to the plate. As a matter of fact, did you know that more than 400 women disguised themselves as men and fought in the Union and Confederate armies during that war? More than 400 women disguised themselves as men to fight. And also, for the women that were left on the homestead and the farms, they are the ones that had to keep feeding the family. The men were gone. They had to keep the crops going, the business. The women stepped up during the Civil War, and the coming of it kind of challenged that ideology of the Victorian domesticities that had kind of defined the lives of men and women in that antebellum era. So in the North and South, the war forced women into public life in ways that they could scarcely imagined a generation before. They would have never thought about what they were getting ready to do. So through the war, through the many wars, through the decades, and then I'm going to take you to 1920, but I'm going to back that up 80 years, because it took 80 years for women to get the right to vote in America, even though the 19th Amendment was ratified here in Nashville in 1920, and it was, mostly voted on by men. It was the women for 80 years, from the first day they started lobbying, including our own Ann Dallas Dudley here in Nashville, to get the women's right to vote. Some women were born and died in their lifetime, worked on the vote lobbying, and never saw it come to fruition. But that was important. What I think is the most important for all of us mothers in the audience, one gentleman, Harry T. Byrne, who was the youngest member of the legislature, got a letter from his mother, and she had said, "Hurrah for suffrage. I don't see where you stand. I don't see where you stand, but I know you'll do the right thing." And he said later on in an interview with Walter Cronkite back in the 1960s, when he was much older, he said, I was the youngest member of the legislature, and actually saw this interview. We got it, Los Angeles sent us to Nashville so we could see it, during the anniversary in 100 years, the 100-year anniversary in 1920. And he said, and it dawned on me that my mother was an educated woman. She'd gone to college, she was a civic leader in the community, but yet we had farm help and men who could not read or write, but they were taken to go vote, but yet my mother didn't have a word in it, and she was educated and led the community. And he said at the last minute, he knew he was going to do the right thing, but he was the youngest legislator, remember, and all the older men, the legislators were seasoned, and most of them were not going to vote. But they realized that it was getting closer and closer. And he said at that moment, he knew that women needed to be at the table to vote. And his one vote changed the destiny of that year and that time. We all know it would have happened. But let's go back to what he thought, and it was from his mother. So I always remind my sons of that too. Do what your mother says. It's always right. But that's what's so important when we think about, and we've highlighted many of those women. As you'll go through the museum later on, you'll see a few of those notable women. There are too many in Tennessee to even recall. I mentioned Ann Dallas Dudley, but we can go all the way to Dolly Parton or Pat Summitt, the UT coach, or, it goes from music. We had one of the first speakers of the House, Beth Harwell. We've had from politics, music, business, Martha Ingram. We have so many up-and-coming rising women in leaderships, and I salute, as I know Ashley would too, this group meeting, Women in Leadership. Jennifer, all of you coming in to speak and keep us going. And I just want to close with a quote from Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who said, "Women belong in all places where decisions are being made. It shouldn't be that women are the exception. Women also shouldn't be the exception on the ballot. If more women are on the ballot, then more women will be elected, and more women will be empowered to lead. So thank you for your leadership. Thank you on behalf of the Tennessee State Museum for being here, and we hope you have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. You can tell that she is a wealth of knowledge that's just not easily replaced. So thank you, Lee, for continuing your service to the state of Tennessee. We are all better for it. Thank you so much. So please begin to enjoy your lunch as I just do a few little housekeeping details. I don't want to keep you from that. It looks very delicious. I think a Japanese salad to kick us off. Japanese-inspired salad, I should say. But our friends at Dream Catering have really taken this opportunity to heart to showcase their talents. So please enjoy. Peyton's going to help me too in the next few moments, because in addition to the Tennessee State Museum, we express profound thanks to our presenting sponsor, Mitsui & Company, USA, to event patrons Bridgestone America's Trust Fund and Nissan North America, to event sponsors Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development, BNA Nashville International Airport, the Mitsui USA Foundation, and United Airlines, and our grant-making partner, the National Association of Japan-America Societies, in conjunction with the Embassy of Japan. And always to JAST's Board of Directors and its corporate and individual members whose annual contributions provide essential funding for JAST. Additionally, collaborating organizations and individuals make our work possible in so many ways. I particularly want to recognize special guests from the Consulate General of Japan in Nashville, the Nashville Chamber of Commerce, the Tennessee World Affairs Council, Sister Cities of Nashville, and the Japan Exchange and Teaching Program Alumni Association, Music City. Each of these organizations plays an instrumental role in expanding JAST's reach to Japan-connected communities in Tennessee. So in the printed programs that are strategically placed beside your knife, you will find brief bios of our featured speakers and host, as well as acknowledgments of these fine partners. You know, they always say that if something technical is going to go wrong, it will. Well, it did. So thank goodness Peyton is by my side to at least give you the view of the intended slideshow. But again, I will direct you to your printed programs where you will see the beautiful logos of our sponsors and our grant-making partners. And finally, in this season of giving and gifting, and to boost conversation at your respective tables, these beautiful floral centerpieces will go home with the individual at your table whose birthday is closest to today's date. So ponder that a little bit, and this is the honor system, just saying. But please determine who is the lucky winner at your table. At the conclusion of the luncheon, we will provide boxes for you to carry them home in. So enjoy your lunch. We'll be back soon with the remarks program. Thank you. Desserts down and leave us for a little while after they do so we can continue according to our timeline. So now we'll begin our remarks program featuring those who inspired this year's theme, Living Our Best Lives, Leading the Way to a Shared Future. Our distinguished speakers today each have their unique story, sparkling wit and intellect, and a particular view of the world shaped by their respective journeys in life so far. Each is an inspiration. Uniting them, and so many in this room, are a tireless passion for serving others. a generous spirit, a track record for taking action toward positive change, and a forward-looking vision. Theirs is the kind of leadership that beloved humanitarian and actress Audrey Hepburn spoke of when she said, "You will discover that you have two hands. One is for helping yourself, and the other is for helping others." And helping others is a fitting segue as I introduce the presenter of the first portion of our remarks program. Momentarily, I will yield the podium to Peter Kelly, President of the National Association of Japan-America Societies based in Washington, D.C. Peter has been and continues to be a generous and nurturing guiding light for JAST and its counterparts across the country. His support through NAJAS and its grant-making partners helped jumpstart a number of landmark programs, including the very first JAST's Women's Leadership Forum and Networking Luncheon back in March of 2015, and every one since. So NAJAS has figured significantly in our ability to produce JAST programs, and there is much, much more to his credit, I assure you. Peter became the 5th president of the National Association of Japan-America Societies in 2009, after decades of working with Japan in the private and nonprofit sectors. I'm cutting things short a little bit, and I apologize to Peter in advance. But he also served from 2004 to 2009 as executive director of the Harvard Yenching Institute in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is an independent foundation dedicated to the promotion of the humanities in higher education in Asia. He's a graduate of Harvard College with a major in East Asian Studies and the University of Maine School of Law. In 2016, he was awarded a Foreign Minister's Commendation by the Government of Japan for his work in support of the commemorations of the 70th anniversary of the end of the Second World War. Beholden as we are to him, it's his turn now to tell you more in his own words, after which he will introduce our keynote speaker. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Lee. It's a pleasure to be here. As earlier in the introduction, Lee mentioned Lee Curtis had worked for both a Democratic and a Republican governor. I work in Washington, D.C., where such things are no longer possible. So it's a pleasure to be out in a part of the world where that spirit exists. There are 38 Japan-America societies around the country. All of them, like the Japan-America Society of Tennessee, are locally organized private organizations which serve to create people-to-people relationships with Japan and the United States at the local level. There isn't any other, I think, bilateral relationship the U.S. has that has such an active private support network all around the country. And we're grateful. We're grateful to all of the societies all around the country which do that work. The oldest society, Japan-America Society, was founded in 1904 in Boston. And there are 5 that were founded before 1910. New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles, among them. And all of those were founded by cultural elites who primarily interested in the cultural relationship between the United States and Japan. But about half of our 38 members were founded since the 1970s and 80s in places that didn't have a historical relationship with Japan, starting in Indiana and Ohio and moving down into the Southeast. Those societies, including the Japan-American Society of Tennessee, were founded as a result of Japanese foreign direct investment with the desire to complement the economic relationship with people-to-people relationships. And it is we in the National Association are very grateful to the societies for continuing all of that work. Here, as Lee Weiland mentioned, this is the first in-person program that Japan-American Society of Tennessee has been able to do in quite a while. So please join me in thanking Lee Weiland, Ginger Byrne, Peyton Goodman, and the Japan-American Society of Tennessee for putting on this program, and thank yourselves for coming to this program. we hope that it will be a harbinger of things to come, more in-person programs. The work of the National Association of Japan America Society, or where I work, is to provide programs that help the Japan America Society network do their business. And we offer 6 different programs in conjunction with different foundations which fund our programs. There's a public affairs program, a geostrategy program which works on the geostrategic relationship between the United States and Japan, 2 business speaker programs, one featuring Japanese companies which have invested in the United States, the other featuring American companies that have invested in Japan. We have a security-related program which recognizes the service of Americans in the U.S. military in Japan, which is by far the largest number of Americans who've ever been to Japan. And we have a cultural program which features collections of Japanese art in American museums. So all of those different programs help the Japan America Societies conduct Japan-related programs in their home areas. This public affairs program is funded to the two NAGES by the Embassy of Japan. And we have 12 what we call Japan Currents programs that are taking place between now and March of next year, each organized by a local Japan America Society. Public affairs programs are not easy to fund, as anybody who has tried to do them know. They cost money, but it's difficult to recover that money. We're very grateful to the Embassy of Japan for providing the general funding for this Japan Currents program. The actual programs are all organized by the local societies with themes chosen by the societies and speakers chosen by the societies. As Lee Weiland mentioned, this is the 7th annual Women's Leadership Forum that the Japan America Society of Tennessee has organized. Today we have a wonderful set of speakers from whom you will hear who represent leadership roles that women have undertaken in the U.S.-Japan relationship. It's my pleasure to kick that off by introducing the first of the speakers, Jennifer Butler. Jennifer has extensive experience throughout the South, I guess I would say. She is a native of Mississippi, but a graduate of the University of Alabama with a degree in Japanese and international relations. She followed that up with a master's program at the University of Sheffield in the UK, and then studied Japanese again in more depth at the famous Inter-University Center in Yokohama. She also worked at the Consulate General of Japan here in Nashville, so she's got Mississippi, Alabama, and Tennessee covered. No mystery as to whom she's rooting for in the next football game, I should say. That's Alabama. But Jennifer used those academic accomplishments to become the senior relations manager at Ashinanga Foundation in Japan. The Ashinanga Foundation is a very interesting foundation. It's one of Japan's oldest philanthropic foundations, and it has a mission of offering educational opportunities to children who have lost parents. And they've constructed a very unique structure, global structure, to work on that mission. It's a unique opportunity to hear about a unique Japan foundation and the path which led from Jackson, Mississippi, through Tuscaloosa, through the UK, and now in Tokyo. So with that, let me introduce our first speaker, Jennifer Butler. Jennifer.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Peter, for the introduction. Thank you also to the Tennessee State Museum and the Japan America Society of Tennessee for the opportunity for us all to gather here today. I am indeed honored to join you all today for the 7th annual JAST Women's Leadership Forum and Networking Luncheon. Our theme this year, Living Our Best Lives, Leading the Way to a Shared Future, is one that really spoke to me. One reason is because it's so personal, living our best lives, and at the same time acknowledges the interconnectedness that is also an essential part of our lives. Add to this that we are also here together today for the annual Women's Leadership Forum. I started to think about how some of the amazing women in my life have allowed me to live my own best life. And more importantly, perhaps, have come to now work in Japan with young ladies who will be the leaders of our shared futures. Peter's already mentioned a little bit, but let me begin with a little bit more about my own background. I was born and raised in Jackson, Mississippi, and grew up in a family full of warm, intelligent, feisty, amazing women. Just a few months ago, our family lost my wonderful Aunt Laura. She was so special to all of us. And as is so common, it wasn't until she was suddenly gone that I understood one of the most precious gifts that she had given me over the years, spending summers in Biloxi, Mississippi, sitting around her kitchen table and laughing with my brother and our cousins. You see, I have always loved Japan, ever since I was a little girl, and knew that one day I wanted to travel to this fascinating land and learn more about it and the people who live there. And my Aunt Laura, along with the other fearless women in my family, helped me to be comfortable with myself and trust that this rather unusual path I wanted to follow could actually work out in the future. So while the only way to do this for me initially was with visits to the local library to check out all the books about Japan, it wasn't until I actually decided to attend the University of Alabama, which has an amazing Japanese language program in addition to a okay football team. This was when my first real study of Japanese and the culture, history, and economics of this land began. In my junior year, declared that one day she was going to go to this far-off place and live. Never once did she try to convince her little girl to not do that and stay closer to home. I love that through her belief in me and my dreams, she also taught me that I could be brave and strike out on that unusual path for a little girl from Mississippi who had dreams of making a difference in a faraway country like Japan. The love and support and life lessons I've received from other women leaders over the years have also had a strong impact. While I worked in Japan on the JET program, for example, I was placed at a school which rarely for that time had one of the few female principals of a public junior high school in my city. When I was in Atlanta, the principal, vice principal, and business office manager of the Japanese international school where I worked were Japanese ladies as well. The career diplomat at the Consulate General of Japan, with whom I worked under for the first several years, was a consul with a long career in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and one of the few specialists on Eastern Europe who also happened to speak Polish, some Russian, English, and Japanese. She guided me and pushed me to dive into my role in the cultural affairs section of the consulate as we created and deepened connections with local organizations throughout Tennessee and the other southern states in our jurisdiction. This is also when I got to work closely with Lee Weiland of JEST and could learn the importance of maintaining relationships with organizations throughout the state in order to execute the programming, activities, and events of the society. As an aside, and surprisingly perhaps, even now where I currently work, The 3 directors of the International Department are all women, whose backgrounds include international development work in a Japanese government agency, on-the-ground programming work in Africa, and even a previous career as an engineer with a major multinational technology company. This is very rare within a Japanese organization, indeed. So when I decided to leave the consulate to pursue opportunities back home in Mississippi, I found a position working at Jackson State University. Jackson State is a HBCU, historically Black college or university. And it was in the process of reestablishing the International Program Study Abroad Office. This was the first time I could work directly with smart, young Black men and women who were students at JSU and start to introduce them to the opportunities that international experiences could provide. My own return to Japan soon followed as I began to purposefully weave all of the pieces of my life and experiences into next career steps. My background thus far centered around Japan, of course, but also international and cultural exchange programs, education, working with young people from around the world and close to home, and with organizations large and small, which sought to shorten the distances between individuals with the work and missions they were committed to. And from these numerous connections and enduring relationships, I was able to arrive in my current role with the Ashinaka Foundation. Before I share about the future leaders that I work with at Ashinanga, allow me to give a quick introduction to the foundation. Ashinanga, as Peter mentioned, is a Japanese nonprofit organization with a very simple mission. We believe in the eradication of poverty through increased access to education for students who have lost one or both of their parents. We have a long history in Japan, and many people recognize the name Ashinanga and the work we have done providing young people with financial support and emotional care over the years. And here is a quick pop quiz for any Japanese speakers in the audience. Can anybody tell me what Ashinanga means in English? We have a student at the Austin P table, I believe. Thank you. Ashinanga, Ashi means legs, naga means long. Ashinaga is the Japanese word for daddy long legs. So our name was inspired by the 1912 novel by Jean Webster, Daddy Longlegs, which depicts an orphaned girl who is sent to college by an anonymous benefactor. Even today, we refer to those individuals who wish to donate to Ashinaga anonymously as Ashinaga-san. In addition to our domestic activities in Japan, our support has expanded internationally, specifically through our Ashinaga Africa Initiative, or AAI. Because we consider higher education as the key to developing future leaders, one scholar is selected from each of the sub-Saharan African countries each year and are provided with support to attend education institutions around the world. During their studies, they participate in our leadership development program and identify issues that are affecting their community and acquire the skills they need to find possible solutions to those issues and implement them upon return to their home countries in Africa as future leaders. Therefore, more than just a scholarship program, the AAI is a leadership program. The work I do at Ashinaga is exciting for me because I strongly believe that having access to education can change people's lives. And the fact that the AAI is a leadership program helps to enhance the impact of the international education experience of each of the scholars. My team, the Student Relations team, helps support and empower these young people during the course of their undergraduate studies to be able to overcome challenges and become change makers as they live and study in foreign countries all over the world. Through the course of our daily work, I can see this especially in some of the young ladies I work with in the AAI in Japan. One recent graduate from the Kingdom of Eswatini shared with us that many of her classmates and even professors would see her in her biology classes and labs and underestimate her abilities based simply on how she looked or liked to wear her hair or jewelry. They were surprised at the quality of work she submitted and contributions she made to the classroom discussions due to her unique awareness of the world she had come from. Another young lady just completed a fully funded master's degree from Oxford University after finishing her undergraduate studies in Japan under the AAI. I still remember the night she called me in tears around midnight. It scared me to death to tell me she had been accepted to Oxford and could now continue to do research about cancer and how that was impacting the women in her home country of Uganda. Of course, we were proud of her achievements in earning a place at Oxford, but even more proud that she would be one step closer on the path she had set out on to improve the lives of women in her home country. One of our current scholars from Kenya is in her third year of studies in Tokyo. The first day I accompanied her to the university entrance ceremony, and we looked around and realized we were the only Black women in the whole auditorium. I reminded her that she too deserved to be in that room, and that she too had so much to contribute to that school and the economics degree she was beginning. As we sat there that day, I felt like I was channeling to her all of the words of encouragement I myself had received from women who had believed in me over the years. She recently told me that she remembers that conversation. And though it took her a while to believe it, she was very happy about the work she has been doing and excited about her final year at school. So going back to the second part of our theme, leading the way to a shared future, I can say without any reservation that the future is in good hands with these young ladies I work with in Japan as they develop into future leaders of Africa. And in reference to the first part of the theme, living our best lives, if I'm honest, it's hard for me to know for sure if I'm truly living my best life, as there are still things that I hope to do better and accomplish in the future. But what I do know is that I'm living a life where I'm proud of the work I do. I believe it has meaning and purpose. I have faith in the potential of the young women and men that I work with and the impact that they will have on the world in small and big ways. In closing, I want to share again how excited I am to have had this time to bring you with me on a journey that is at once personal, but which also, I hope, demonstrates how our lives and the work we do might in some way contribute to the future we inevitably share with each other. Another thing that I enjoy about working at Ashinanga is the concept of on okuri, or paying it forward. This is embedded in the work we do with the Japanese students and AI scholars at Ashinanga. And I believe we are all doing this, even if it's not entirely clear in the moment. Who knew, for example, that 2 years ago, the whole world would have to face a challenge bigger than ourselves? Who knew that all the paths I've chosen and people I've connected with would culminate in my current work, which allows me to use these skills to support future leaders who will impact the world. Who knows what the connections we might make here today could have on our shared futures. But I hope we can all take a moment to celebrate what we share and support each other in the work we do here in Tennessee, the US, Japan, and all over the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer. Do we have time for questions, Lee?
Well, we're running behind. If anyone has questions, I think that's...
Okay, let's take think of a question. We have a couple of we can take a couple of questions, but I think we've heard here from Jennifer really about three journeys. One is Jennifer's own journey to Ashinanga. Another is Ashinanga's journey from a local Japan-oriented philanthropic foundation to a global role in providing educational opportunities for for children who have lost their parents in Africa and other places. And the final journey I think we heard about was some of the people that the Ashinanga Foundation has helped. Individuals such as the woman who was returning to Ghana. All of those are different journeys towards leadership. Since we do have a few minutes for questions, would anyone like to ask a question to Jennifer? Well, here's one from me, and that is. How challenging was it for the Ashinanga Foundation to take their mission from Japan all the way around the world to Africa, and how did they construct an organization which would allow them to do that?
Thank you, Peter. So the Ashinanga Foundation, the mission never changes. We believe that students who've lost a parent lose access to education, and that has a detrimental impact on their lives. And so providing support so they can access education has a positive impact and can change the world. And so that mission has always been there from the beginning. But it wasn't until the great Hanshin earthquake in Kobe in 1995 and then subsequent natural disasters in Japan, the 3/11, which happened in the Tohoku region, that there was such an outpouring of support from international people to the foundation that Ashinanga says, well, we should give that back. We should pay it forward to young people outside of Japan who have also lost a parent. And so it developed quite organically so that the mission hasn't changed. The population is still in need. We can do something, so let's do something. And Africa, of course, is a wonderfully diverse continent with many different countries and different peoples. But there are some challenges in Africa, especially with children who've lost parents in various ways. And so we focused our attention on Africa because with the hope that we could do a lot of good there. And that also these young people would be able to do their studies, go back to the continent, and help develop the next generation and keep paying it forward. So it kind of makes sense, right, in a lot of ways. But a lot of people in Japan don't know that Ashinanga does international activities. And so this is one way we hope that more people will learn about the work that we're doing, not just in Japan, but all over the world.
Thank you. Jennifer mentioned paying it back as part of Ashinanga's theory, but let us all thank Jennifer for bringing it back, her story back to Nashville. And we hope that as the program proceeds, there'll be opportunity for you all to speak individually with Jennifer once the program ends. Please join me in thanking Jennifer Butler.
thank yous for you too, Peter. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. While I introduce the next segment of our program, I believe our friends from the Dream Team are going to remove some of the plates from your tables, so please just bear with us as we try to move ahead and clear your tables a little bit for you. So again, my pleasure to introduce the host of our capstone portion of today's program, JAST Board Chair Masami Tyson. Masami has kindly agreed to share brief remarks before introducing Consul General Fukushima, and following the Consul General's remarks, to engage her one-on-one in conversation. As only the second woman and very first Japan-born board chair in JAST's almost 22-year history, Masami is already making a tremendous positive impact as we look ahead to the future of the organization and to the future of Japan-Tennessee relations. I want you all to stay tuned for the great things to come in the future. Masami's success is built on limitless passion and a commitment to building success within a wide-ranging sphere. Luckily, she has reserved no small share of her passion and commitment for JAST and its mission to strengthen a vibrant bilateral economic future for Tennessee and Japan by building upon long-standing relationships and promoting understanding and cultural awareness among Japanese and American communities in Tennessee. Please welcome our amazing board chair, Masami Tyson.
I'm also very short, so. Well, Lee, that was ridiculous, but thank you for your very kind introduction. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Masami Tyson. I'm very honored to be here today. Thank you so much for making the time to be with us. On behalf of JAST, of course, I really do appreciate this opportunity, and again, that you would take the time out of your busy schedules to be with us. But I hope that already you are feeling like this was a good use of your time on a Friday, and we are in for even a bigger treat, or more treat, as the afternoon moves on. So I just wanted to offer some very brief remarks before we get the Consul General up here. And I wanted to talk about our theme. Jennifer has already really parsed that out for us, mainly by telling us about her best life. But so we hear a story, we listen to a story like Jennifer's, and I think we all agree that we say, yes, that is a life best lived. You were very modest about that, and you asked the question whether it was, but yes, we do listen to a story like that, and I think we're all able to recognize a life best lived when we hear one and see one. But as I thought about today, I got curious about what actually the definition was of living our best lives is. And so I went to the internet, which may or may not have been a good idea, and the caveat is, or disclaimer, I'm a lawyer, so I also have to give a disclaimer that it was only the internet where I got my definitions. But I found some very interesting things. So, for one, evidently, it was Oprah Winfrey that coined this term, living our best lives. Is this true? Is this commonly accepted? I mean, I feel like it's such a, ancient concept that it sounded odd to me that Oprah coined this term, but nevertheless, this is one of the things I found out. Another thing that I found out is that this is a very commonly used term on social media. So, hashtag living our best lives. So, you go on Facebook and Instagram, and what do you see? You see perfect bodies, beautiful faces, gorgeous and angelic children and pets, dreamlike vacation homes and resorts, right? Well, obviously, I did not like these definitions very much, so I did a little more digging, and I did manage to find a couple definitions that I quite liked, so I'd like to share them with you. So first, it said that a best life is one that encompasses reaching new levels of self-awareness and self-growth that ultimately leads to taking actions that help you to discover and hone into your interests, talents, and passions. Pretty good. Here's another one I liked. Living your best life means living a life that makes you happy and one that allows you to be at your full potential. It means being intentional about the way you choose to live. I quite like that too. But let's think about that for a minute. What does that really mean? What I understand this to mean, is that at the very least, best is quite subjective. So what's best for you may not be best for me, and vice versa. So I think an important question we want to ask ourselves then is, what does it mean for me to be living a best life? Jennifer, I'm sure you asked that over and over as you made your decisions throughout your life, and you will continue to do so. Now, on the other hand, I think there is a common thread, or I should say several threads, among all lives which we can label as a best lived life. For example, a best life, really, despite what social media says, I don't think can be captured in a single moment. Because I think a life best lived is quite fluid, and it is ongoing, and it is a process. It doesn't have an end, so the good news is there is always another chance. And there's always room to grow. We don't stay put, we don't stay stagnant, and we strive to be better. And might I add that this process isn't always easy. It can be messy, it can be painful, and really, definitely, most of it we would not want to post on Facebook or Instagram. Now, a best life sometimes takes risks, hopefully within reason, and goes on detours often, and it takes you out of your comfort zone. Jennifer left the United States to go to England, to go to Japan. I know you traveled to Africa. And mine is a little bit of a reverse story. I grew up in Yokohama, Japan, and here I am in Nashville, Tennessee, of all places. So, like I said, it takes you out of your comfort zone. It certainly does not go as planned, just in case you didn't know that. And because this process hurts sometimes, because there will be setbacks and mistakes, and because this road is challenging and exhausting most, if not all of the time, it is best to have people who will walk alongside you. It's good to have partners in crime. Right, Lori? Belong to affinity groups, organizations, and take advantage of gatherings like the one today. Because these are the groups, your families, your friendships and relationships that will encourage and embrace you in this journey. Remember, the latter part of today's event title reminds us that this is a shared journey. We have to stick together. So I proudly share with you that as for me, and I like to tell people this, and now you're going to be in on the secret that I am not joking at all when I tell people that I am still trying to figure out what it is I want to be when I grow up. So that's a little bit of my story, but now I would like to move on to another more amazing, more distinguished one. So now it is my distinct privilege to introduce our next speaker, Consul General Kayoko Fukushima. I will refrain from simply reading her extremely impressive and illustrious background and career, which includes lifelong diplomatic service in 3 different countries and 3 assignments just here in the United States. But I guess I want to tell you that or let me urge you to, as you listen to her remarks, think about how she, like Jennifer, must have intentionally made choices to keep moving, to keep improving, and to keep reaching new levels. And along the way, helping others, pulling them up, and then sharing, giving it back, paying it forward. I think this has been a theme here today, even as Lee Curtis talked about this museum and what is celebrated here, and those people from the past who may not have even necessarily seen the fruit of their work. So I have had the privilege of knowing Consul General for about 2 years now, and have been privileged to attend a significant number of meetings with her, to attend events with her. And now I'm going to embarrass her, but there are many, many reasons to admire Consul General Fukushima. One thing that stands out to me is that she is personable, kind, and also has a great sense of humor, which, by the way, is always necessary in this crazy journey. She is also extremely gracious, and despite her accomplishments, and while she is the boss, she is very, very humble. She is kind, she is caring, encouraging, always has a smile on her face, and always seeing the best in others. I have never heard Consul General talk down at anyone or speak ill of anyone or criticize anyone or an event or anything like that. These are the traits of a true leader. So again, we are in for a treat. We are going to hear now from someone who is living her best life, a trusted leader who is leading us towards a shared future. Consul General.
Thank you very much, Masami-san, for your kind invitation and also very nice introduction. I feel very flattered. And I think that my action, yes, sometimes it's intentional, but many times spontaneous. Good afternoon, everyone. It's so nice to see you all in person this time, after a long interval. I've been in my current position for nearly 2 years. Our consulate has a mission to strengthen relations between Japan and 5 states of its jurisdiction in a variety of fields, including political, business, and cultural fields. We build partnerships with state governments, lawmakers, businessmen, academics, and cultural organizations. So I had opportunities to meet with many people. And it was a kind of pleasant surprise that quite a few people showed interest in my being the first female Consul General of Japan in Nashville. And I was blessed with several occasions to speak about gender equality and women's empowerment based on my experiences. Starting with the regional event of U.S.-Japan Council, which was coordinated by Ms. Tyson here, I had opportunities to speak at last year's Just Women's Leadership Forum and IBC of Nashville Chamber of Commerce, Nashville Sister City Committees, as well as City of Baton Rouge. Through those opportunities, I have found some similarities between this region and Japan. In both societies, women tend to be loaded with primary responsibilities to raise children and do housekeeping. Many women are endeavoring to balance their work and family responsibilities. Recently, COVID-19 has been negatively affecting women. It would be meaningful to share our experiences and think together now how we can make our steps forward and accelerate the changes. in this regard, I am grateful that the JAST organized this precious occasion today. And I'm also very grateful to the Nashville State Museum, which has provided such a nice venue with such a wonderful hospitality. Looking back on my experience in balancing my career and my private life, I would say it was pretty tough. My two daughters are now 30 and 25 years old. And now I can look back on it in the mood for some nostalgia. But when they were small, every day was full of challenges. It started with the time when there was no parental leave for my first daughter, and I found no vacancy in the neighborhood daycare facilities. I relied on helps of many people surrounding me, and sometimes I had to use some acrobatic way to get through. For example, when my younger daughter was about 1 year old and my older one 6, I had to make a business trip to China as a part of the foreign ministry. And my husband also worked for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but he worked late hours. So I often relied on my mother, who lived in Osaka. It's a several hours of travel. But that time, she couldn't make it as she had to take care of my grandmother, who lived with her and who was not feeling well. So I thought about options, and I came up with an idea to get through. I flew with my two daughters from Tokyo to Osaka, and I met with my mother at the airport in Osaka and asked her to pick them up. And I then flew from Osaka to China. So that way I managed it. And I relied on many people. For example, one day when I got to the Foreign Ministry's headquarters office, in my office, and when I opened my laptop, I had a phone call from the school, my daughter. It was my daughter's school teacher, and she said that my daughter was not feeling well. And she didn't say that I should pick her up, but her tone of the voice implied that. So I took the courage to talk to my boss in the office, explain the situation. And I was lucky to get his understanding, and I could leave the office. On the other day, when I was about to leave the office in late afternoon, some urgent job came in. It was to make a briefing material for Prime Minister to attend a summit meeting. And that time as well, I talked to my boss, and he was so nice to say that, okay, I'll take care of it. And usually our kind of level of the people are supposed to do those things, like making some preparations to formulate the material. And he was in the position just to supervise it, but he said he would do it. So I was so blessed with the understanding bosses, and who, in most of the cases, who were men. So I owe a lot to my bosses like that, my mother, my husband, babysitters, friends, and many others who helped me to get through these challenges. And 40 years ago, when I started to work at the Japanese Foreign Ministry, I, as a woman, was an absolute minority. But 30 years later, which is about 10 years ago, when I was working in my office at night, I found almost all of them were women. That office happened to have relatively many women within the Foreign Ministry's office, but still it was eye-alarming. Maybe it matches with Jennifer's talk, having many women in the office in Japan. And there was also a male colleague who left the office early to take care of his children as his wife worked late hours. So I felt that the time has changed. My work as the founding director of UN Women Japan Liaison Office from 2015 to 2017 was another challenge and a very rewarding experience. UN Women has three main roles. First one is to assist UN member countries to formulate legislature to promote gender equality and women's empowerment. And second is to assist those countries to carry out those legislatures. And the third one is to coordinate among UN organizations on gender issues. For example, with UNDP and UNICEF, UNHCR, and UNFPA. And my office, UN Japan Liaison Office, which was set up in Bunkyo City, Tokyo, had also three main roles. First one is to let Japanese people know about the role and activities of the UN Women. And second one is to build partnerships with Japanese government, politicians, business leaders, academics, and civil society organizations. And the third one is to get the experience or expertise of UN women being utilized for gender equality and women's empowerment in Japan. And I worked in a new office. Actually, the office space was not ready when I started. So I had to determine the layout of the office. And like, for example, I invited the security expert of UN from some other Asian country to make advice on the security arrangements of the office. And also, I had to consult with the headquarters and determine the office hours and the office holidays. So they included those basic things. And the largest or biggest challenge I had at the early days of my working at the UN Japan Liaison Office was to hold an opening ceremony of the office with dignitaries after a few months after I started. And our office was staffed with just 2 people, including myself. But many people came in to help us, like those potential partners from the Japanese government and Japanese companies, as well as the Japanese universities and Japanese civil society organizations. So with that help, we could manage to have an opening ceremony with then Prime Minister Abe and then Executive Director of UN Women, Dr. Muramo Nukuka, as well as other dignitaries. And among those who helped us were foreign missions, people from foreign missions. And in connection with the United States, I'd like to share with you that then American ambassador to Japan, Ambassador Caroline Kennedy, kind of sent me an ale. To be concrete, she invited me to a reception at the American Embassy, which was held on the occasion of the Japan's holding of the big conference related to women assembly, World Assembly. And embassy staff invited me to go to Ambassador Kennedy, and he took a picture of two of us. And later on, Ambassador Kennedy, in her Facebook of the American Embassy, praised that photo, and with the congratulatory message like, "Congratulations on the opening of the UN Women Japan Liaison Office." It was so nice. And when she completed her tenure, and when she was about to leave, she made the farewell video. And I was surprised to see that photo was in it. And another example was that ambassadors from EU countries were very eager to help us. And so one day I was invited to the meeting at the EU delegation office in Tokyo. And we made exchange of views. And they invite me to some joint, endeavors. And one of the example that resulted in to be concrete action was with the help of the Swedish embassy. We could hold a Swedish cooking class for Japanese men. The embassy staff from Sweden, it happened to be he, and he was able to cook Swedish dish. So, we invited Japanese men, and also we had a cooking class, and afterwards he made presentations on the efforts on gender issues in Sweden, and also I made a presentation on UN women's roles and activities. And collaboration with the youth was a great experience as well. I visited many schools in various parts of Japan. One day, a group of high school students in Gunma Prefecture visited our office. They were boys and girls. They made a presentation on what they have learned on gender equality and women's empowerment from UN women's activities. Like they were interested in the UN women's initiative called He for She. So they shared what they have learned from their research. And it was so impressive. Later, they organized an event at the school's cultural festival on gender issues, as well as they participated in the UN Women's events. So in that case, I was trying to encourage young people on gender issues, but I felt I was encouraged by them. And I can keep talking hours like this, but I feel I should stop now. And I would like to finish my speech by stressing the need for sharing our experiences and cooperation each other to accelerate changes. And also, I feel obliged to tell you that this is going to be one of my few remaining opportunities to speak. Earlier this week, I had received an order from a ministry to go back to Japan, and I'm leaving for Japan early next year. So I'd like to take this opportunity to sincerely express my sincere thanks for all of you for your very kind cooperation and support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Consul General. Now we're going to move on to the one-on-one portion of the program. Chuck? Chuck. Okay. Thank you, Consul General. Thank you, Peyton. So I'm just going to ask you several follow-up questions. You answered a lot of these, actually, in your remarks, and I know we're pressed for time, so I'd like to combine some of these questions. I'm going to make them rather open-ended, so please answer in the way you would like to. So first, the theme of today's event is living our best lives, leading the way to a shared future. Now, I took a stab at trying to explain what that means, especially the living our best lives part. Can you explain in your words what that means for you?
I think, as you noted, it's a broad and difficult question, and I admire your research efforts. Yes, I think there are two factors which are important from my point of view. First one is our lives instead of my life. So it's for everyone. So, everyone needs to be able to live his or her best life. And another point is it's best, not just good or better. It needs to be best. So I think it connotes that it's a kind of a ideal or goal. So that leads to me with the idea enshrined in the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goal, where there is no one left behind, and concerted efforts of everyone is important to attain the goal. And in that efforts, I feel that it is very important that all of us have opportunities, and maybe that, as previously mentioned, that we will be able to choose from a wide range of opportunities to live our own lives.
Yes, thank you. I think that reminder that it's the best life, not just good or better. Wow, that's a high calling. But yes, thank you for that reminder. Also, I think both Jennifer and you in your work have done your part about making sure everybody has that choice and opportunities. Thank you. Now, how about the leading the way part? There are those of us in the audience who aren't necessarily, quote, leaders or have leadership positions in our workplaces, but can we still do the leading?
I think that everyone needs to, or everyone can do the things that they can do. And I'm very happy to have met with several students here today. And for example, if you are a student, maybe you have already started a research, like those students whom I met. But if you are not, even if you are not making research on it, you will be able to talk about the issue in a cafeteria, school cafeteria, or maybe talk remotely, or arrange some event, like you may be able to invite an expert and make a remote event given this situation. And these are the hints which I got from UN Women's homepage related to he or she. And UN Women also has a book club for those who are interested in issues. So I think there are a variety of ways that you can take part. And I think concerted efforts of all the people are very important factors to be a driving force.
Thank you very much. Okay, so finally, the final part, the shared future. What does that look like for you? What is it that you personally, and then for all of us collectively, what would you like to see as a shared future?
I think in shared future, I hope that everyone is free from gender lenses, like men should do this, or women should do that, or women shouldn't do this, and men shouldn't do that. And also, hopefully, all the women as well as men have variety of options or opportunities available in front of them, and they can choose whatever they like to make their lives the best ones. And I have an image that in that world, there will be no terms such as, she is the first woman too. Or maybe in Japanese, we have a word, ikumen. That means husband or man who are very positively caring or raising children. If all the men do that, that word is not necessary. So my image is that it's a word that those terms vanish. Yes.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. Thank you. So finally, do you have any final thoughts or a final message for the audience today?
Yes, that's been a great opportunity to attend this meeting today. I could meet many of you, and I really appreciate your interest in this issue and attending this event. So I hope you can keep going on, and hopefully we can get together to work on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Consul General Fukushima, Masami. It's really kind of bittersweet today, isn't it, with the news of the Consul General's impending departure. It's made me quite teary, I have to say. But I'm grateful that we had the time with her in person this year, because, you know, we just haven't had enough of that during her short tenure here. But I'm so grateful for everything she has done for JAST and that her staff continue to do in support of our organization. Although several of our guests have had to leave already, I do apologize for the lengthy delay in getting started today, but I wanted to let you know there is still a lot in store. I understand that there are 48 people who signed up for tours of the museum. So our guides are assembled outside near the registration table, so as soon as you make your way out there, those tours will begin. But I also wanted to let you know that we have a small memento awaiting you on the table outside. That is our tradition here, to leave you with a little gift, a token of our appreciation. So when you finish your tours, you may pick it up then, or you may take it with you whenever you choose to depart today. But also, I just wanted to let you know there's no rush to leave. We still have the beverage station set up, so if you have time to hang around a little bit and enjoy a little more conversation at your tables, you are certainly welcome to do so, and we encourage it. But mainly, I just want to thank you for being here, and I hope that having been here with us today, you're leaving re-energized and inspired. I know I certainly am. It's been so wonderful to have with us Consul General Fukushima, Masami. and all the way from Japan, my dearest Jennifer Butler, and always Peter Kelly, and all of you, thank you so much for your support. I can't wait to see you again very soon. Thank you.